Welcome to the RockStar in Life podcast, where you learn the secrets to unleashing your inner rock star so you can make the world your stage. What's up, fellow rock stars in life? It's Siri Shakti, and I have my awesome co-host joining me today.
What's up, everybody? Dr. Dan in the house.
Well, today is a really great episode. We were sitting down thinking about what it was we wanted to share with you guys today. And one thing came to mind. This is really powerful. So I'm really looking forward to this. And it's called Your Words Create Your Reality.
Yep. And I like that.
It's very mystical.
Yeah. I had some other ideas for names. One of them was one of my favorite things. Or actually, I think you came up with it. It was Change Your Words, Change Your World was another one.
Yeah.
And then Winners Never Win. And oh, wait, no, that's wrong.
Winners never win.
Yeah, winners never win. No. Whiners never win and winners never whine.
There we go.
I like that one too. Oh, and also You Don't Deserve It. And then I was also thinking of just boo-hoo, wah-wah.
Nice.
So if you like any of those instead and you think we should have renamed it to like boo-hoo, wah-wah, just let us know.
That's a good
in
one.
the comments.
Yeah. I like Winners Never Win. That was a good one.
Yeah, winners never win, so why even bother, right? Totally. No, it just, yeah, okay.
So what we're talking about here, because I really want to, I really want to drill into the core of what this is about.
Into your DNA.
Into your DNA.
You want to put this into your DNA.
Yes. Years ago, I did not grasp or understand just how powerful words were. And, I lived my life like most of us do. We just throw around words like they don't even matter. It's very unconscious. But as I began learning from teachers and studying, I really started to grasp just how powerful words are, not only in what we say out loud to other people, but also what it is that we say to ourselves, that inner dialogue. Words are so powerful. And one common thing that I began to notice as I was growing and learning from different teachers and studying is that some of the most successful and happy people that I came across, they were very selective of what words they used in their life. Didn't you notice this as well, Dan?
Yeah, and I remember in the beginning it was very difficult too, because we were constantly monitoring ourselves and each other.
Yes.
And when you have when you're holding on to something and you're having an emotion towards something, like how many times, and I don't even know if we've mentioned this before, we probably have, but how many times like have you said to me like, Dan, you're making me angry, or you're pissing me off, and then what would I say to you? Nobody can piss you off. Wait, what did you say? Now I can't remember it. Nobody can piss you off or make you angry.
Yeah.
Only you can make yourself angry.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I'm surprised I couldn't remember that on the spot, because how many times have I heard you say that to me?
Well, because it's been a long time since then. So
yeah.
we haven't really done as much. But yeah, I mean, some people might say like, oh, well, you're lucky because, both of us were going through this at the same time and kind of feeding off each other, or, helping and supporting each other. But it's, usually when you're feeling like that, you don't want, to know that you want to hold on to that emotion because, it makes you feel not better, but it gives you that sympathy, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can remember many, many times where I was really upset about something and you would say that to me, because maybe it was something I was constantly like complaining about, and you would say that to me and I would actually get really irritated with you. Actually, no, let's be honest. I'd get pissed off when you would say that no one could make me feel that way other than myself. But then when I would calm down, a few hours or a few days later and come to my senses, I would always come to you and I would realize it was absolutely the truth, that it had to come from me.
Yeah. I think the last time I remember saying that to you, you got angry and I could see it in your face. And I didn't even say nobody can make you angry. We didn't even have to go there.
Right.
Instead, because we've gotten so good at this now, it's like you got angry from just something, right? And I just looked at you and I said, well, you're not angry at me. You just want to be angry right now. And that's and I said, that's totally fine. Why don't you just go downstairs or go in the other room, get angry? And what did I say? And then text me in an hour or two saying that you're better now. And it was kind of like you finally like saw, like you went downstairs and I think in a couple minutes you reply back saying, okay, I get it. I'm feeling better now.
It was just a couple minutes.
It used to be like an entire day though. Like you'd be angry and then it wouldn't be until the next day or two sometimes.
Yeah. Wow, how far we have come.
I know. Good times, right?
Yes.
I wish we had those on recording.
Yes.
That would have been fun.
Oh, okay.
On video, for me at least. I like looking at that stuff, but
so, what happens is that we have certain things that we voice out loud, especially when we're, we tend to hold on to certain patterns of things that we tell ourselves and that we say out loud. And what happens is that words become, in essence, like a lens in which you see your life through. And so it really creates the reality that you're living, And I can tell you firsthand from personal experience that I've been through many experiences where I was doing this exact thing. I was telling myself a story on a regular basis that was oftentimes very limiting, and it was actually holding me back from my full potential or from being able to find solutions in my life. And we're going to go deeper into this. I know before we go deeper into this, you had this beautiful example that you wanted to share about the water.
Yep, super beautiful.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Either that or purdy. I was going to say purdy or
I'm going with beautiful. It's beautiful, guys.
Nice. All right. Yeah. So there's this book that we heard about years ago. I think it was written in 2005. I mean, I don't know how far back it goes besides the book because I never looked into that, but it's a book called The Hidden Messages in Water. So The Hidden Messages in Water, and you can pick it up on Amazon or, one of your bookstores or something like that. But it's a really, really cool book. And you can even go on YouTube and there's some videos and some stuff on there as well. It's from this scientist, Dr. Masaru Emoto.
Yeah.
I'm probably saying that wrong. So what he did was, in a nutshell, he actually discovered that the crystals formed in frozen water. So he took water. He took them from all over the place too. He took like polluted water, non-polluted water, and, blessed water and stuff like that. And he froze it. He actually froze it, and he even put, like labels on them and wrote things like hate, love, murder, I want to kill you, and things like that. I think he even wrote like Hitler on one or something like that, or Satan or devil, or I don't know, some, a bunch of stuff like that. And then some was like love and bless or blessings or things like that, or
joy.
Joy, some powerful words like that. So then under a microscope, he would actually look and see, what the effect had on the water, right? I guess like on a molecular level or whatever. And what he noticed was all the words that, that were like positive reinforcement words, whether it be love or anything like that. It showed like, in their words, it was like brilliant, complex, and colorful snowflake patterns. So like, beautiful, right? Like you'd look at it and be like, whoa, this looks like really cool, like crystal looking.
I encourage you, we'll put the link on there. They are so beautiful. Yeah. Oh, see, there's the beautiful.
Yeah, there's the beautiful, the purdy. And then so the ones that had like the negative words or the negative thoughts and emotions and the writing on the bottles themselves, they formed like, in their words, were like incomplete, misshaped patterns with dull colors.
Yeah.
So in other words, they were ugly, right?
Yeah.
It didn't look right, and you can tell. I mean, it's like it's all misshaped, deformed. It's just weird looking, It looks like something you would imagine looking at like a disease under, a microscope.
Yeah.
Like where it just doesn't look healthy.
You know, it was so cool too. I remember one example. They took a water sample from polluted water, and I think it was in India. And so they took a picture of they froze it and they took a picture of the crystals. The crystals were exactly what you were just talking about. They were dull. They were just really ugly. Like they weren't defined and dark, you know. And then he took that same sample of water and he wrote words like love and joy and happiness on it. And a few days later, froze that same sample, and the crystals were already transforming into beautiful crystals like the ones you were talking about.
Yeah, I remember reading also that they did that with, exactly you just said. It was all misshaped and looking nasty.
Yeah.
Diseased, right? Like diseased water. And they gave it to a child, and a child was holding it, and I don't know if he was playing with it or what, but giving it love, you know, and it was a happy child. And then they looked again, and the same thing, you know, it was like, it looked beautiful, you know, it was like changed. I don't know how long it took or what they did exactly, but yeah, I saw the before and afters, and
so cool.
I thought that was really cool. So imagine if water, you know, under a microscope, you know, can show it at this level, right? Imagine what the words can have on you and others around you, right? I mean, it's the difference between listening to this podcast where we're talking about, you know, in each episode, we're talking about something to uplift you and help you, you know, push yourself further and just be a better you, right? Opposed to if we were just sitting here like saying a bunch of negative stuff and how the world's crap and junk. And some of you guys might still listen to that, but you know, again, there's got to be a balance, right? There's got to be a balance, because if, you know, for me, even personally, you know, I mean, so much stuff going on in the world right now, you know, I mean, we don't watch the news on TV. I mean, we get our news kind of from Facebook and YouTube, and we try and stick to the comedians. And, you know, and we only, you know, follow people on Facebook that are our friends, and we kind of ignore the ones or unfollow the ones that are constantly talking about the doom and gloom. Yeah. Right. So we want to stay informed with what's going on in the world, but we don't want to consume ourselves with it. Right. I mean, there's some people out there that, you know, that in the news, they'll take like 2 hours to talk about everything that's bad in the world. And you want to definitely balance yourself on that, because these, you know, it has an effect on you, and you want to have that balance. You want to be careful with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember what percentage of our body is water. Do you remember? It's like 70%.
It's like 70. I've heard 70 to 80%.
So when you were just saying that, it made me think, you know, I mean, obviously words, regardless, are going to have power over us, but you think about the power of the words on the water samples that he created. And if our bodies are that percentage of water on top of it, that just goes hand in hand, you know, Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I know a lot of people, and including myself, you know, years and years ago, you know, I would say things internally to myself, you know, and, heck, I even remember when I was, you know, a teenager, and I'd sit in front of the mirror and I just like say things like to myself, like, you know, you don't deserve happiness, you know, or you don't deserve money, and not in those exact words, but it was something like that. And you know, you don't deserve success, and you don't deserve blah, 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 or you'll never have those things, you know, or you're ugly, or, you know, I mean, it's having that sympathy for yourself because you're trying to satiate something. It's similar to, well, it's pretty much exactly the same as, you know, just going and just eating a bunch of junk food because you're feeling depressed. You know, and just feeling sorry for yourself, and you know, that's, I mean, eating like one little piece of something, or eating a little bit of something, or feeling depressed for, you know, a couple minutes or hours is, you know, especially if it's something big, you know, if somebody passed away, or you just got a breakup. I mean, no one's saying that you can't grieve and you just like instantly like, you know, like throw your fist in the air and go, yes, I will feel great and I will not let this stop me, or anything like that. Yeah, you can grieve, and yeah, you can go through that. You just don't want to live there to where you're doing this day in, day out for, you know, the next, you know, couple weeks, you know, or, well, depending on the severe, you know, how deep it is, how big it is. But, you know, I mean,
the loss of a loved one or something, of course that's going to take longer.
Yeah.
But, something as stupid as somebody said a comment to you and you felt a certain way. Notice I didn't say they made you feel, right? Because you're giving them the control. But something like that, you should be able to rebound with as quick as possible and understand that, well, two things. One, it's not about you. There's a reason why they said that to you. It's not because of you. It's something going on with themselves. And also understanding that don't give them the power, because you're not like you're handing them the power. When I say don't give them the power, what I'm saying is don't give your power away. Not that they're going to accept that power, but you're giving it away if you're saying like other people can make me feel a certain way. And a great example of this that I remember, and I know you remember this as well, and it's been a while since I've said this, but if somebody hands you a gift, and imagine somebody hands you a gift, it's wrapped up in everything, and you don't accept that gift. If you say, no, thanks, and you just don't even grab it, you just let them hold it in their hands.
Right.
Whose gift is that now?
It's their gift.
It's the gift of the person that, they had it. It's theirs. Yeah. They were going to give it to you. You didn't accept it. You walked away. They're still holding it. It's their gift. Yeah. Even if they put it on the ground and walked away, it's still their gift. You never took ownership of it. And that's the same thing goes with anything somebody can say to you or try to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I understand this. It makes sense. But it is a challenge when you're trying to live this way. Yes, but you get better with practice. And just, recently myself, this happens, constantly in our life, something like this happens, but sometimes there's something a little deeper. And I had somebody in my life that was really trying to just make everybody around them feel really bad. Right. I, at first, I got wrapped up in it, and, I didn't go off on them or anything, but, I was talking to some of my friends and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I can't believe it. Can you believe it? And they're like, yeah, that's just, man. Yeah. They just want to make us feel like crap. They just want us to all feel like crap. Like all they do is just walk around thinking, who can I make feel crappy today?
Yeah.
And it took a while. It took like an entire, almost an entire day, maybe 24 hours. A little less than that. I mean, I think it was like the next day we did yoga, and then I came from a different place, and I looked at it, I'm like, okay. Let's get this emotion out of it. Let's get this emotion out of it. What I'm making this be, I know their intent is to do something, and they're not even aware though. That's the thing.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah.
They are that way. That's just, how they operate, like whether they were raised that way or their conditions or whatever it was that got them to the place, or they felt it made them feel a certain way and they enjoyed it when they were growing up or something, like, oh, well, I can make so-and-so cry and then I feel better about myself.
Yeah.
Or, I can put down these people and tease them and then I feel better about myself.
Yeah. Because what it does is it gives them a little bit of feeling of like control or power. Whereas oftentimes people that are doing that, that's what they're lacking.
Yeah. It's a bully. It's like being a bully. It's the same. I mean, they all come from that same need that they're satiating themselves, just like with junk food or anything else or drugs. I mean, it's all pretty much the same, and they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you were saying is after you did yoga and you came from a different place, that is where the power, that's where your own personal power lies. Because when you can step back and look at the other person and realize what's really going on with that other person, that, boy, they're in not a good place. And that's, that's where they're coming from. And
you can come from a place of compassion.
Yes.
From that.
Yes. It doesn't mean you
not
have
sympathy.
Yeah.
Compassion.
And it doesn't mean you have to like be buddy with them.
No, you don't.
But it helps you to be able to keep your own personal power in the situation.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to deal with people like that in your life because, they're, it's a family member or somebody, that's in your life that you can't really just be like, oh, I never want to see you again because, they're your best friend's wife or husband or something like that, or you work with them, they're a coworker or they're a partner or something like that. The best you can do is limit yourself around them, around that stuff, right? And not let it affect you.
Yeah.
And do lots of yoga if you have to be around them and meditation, right?
Go to our website and do some yoga.
Yeah. What I like to do is I like to kind of flash a flashlight on it, right? I like to, and you've seen me do this. I mean, we talked about that at a dinner party we were at, and this person was talking about all this negative stuff, and I just said, oh, wow, the world's going to end and, all this other stuff. And I just kind of made jokes about it.
Yeah.
And they got frustrated. And, so they're going to avoid you at other parties, and you can still be like courteous and, you're not making fun of them.
Yeah.
You're just kind of flashing a flashlight on it.
Yeah.
And that happens with us all the time with, whether we're talking about family members or people in our life. When we get to talking or we're talking to them, whether it's at a family event or, they just decide to call you to unload all this stuff, but they're not looking for solutions.
Yeah.
They're not looking for help. They're looking for sympathy. And what happens? What happens after? So I'll let you go into your own personal story because I know you have something you want to talk about that. But
yeah, what were you going to say first?
I was going to say that they want to unload all this on you because they want sympathy. It's like they're just dumping everything on you. It'd be like somebody coming to your house, bringing all their dirty laundry that they're like they have like 12 dogs, 20 cats, and there's like urine and poop all over their clothes, and they're bringing it to your house and they're just dumping it in the middle of your living room. And then when you go to clean it up, they say, no, leave it there. Leave it there. They don't want you to do anything with it other than you have it as well. And they're not aware that they're doing this. But when you try to help them, they will be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I tried that. I don't know. They're just going through that because they want that sympathy still. But if you try to help them, then, and that's all you do, instead of giving them sympathy and you try and help them and you give them solutions, then they're not going to call you anymore because you're not giving them that sympathy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually had people in my life, in both of our lives that what I realized.
Family, friends, people that we've worked with.
Yeah. What I've realized is that sympathy is very compelling. It can become, and really, I know our teacher Guru Singh has talked about this before. We've discussed this with him, that humans are the only earthlings. I say earthlings because we're, part of this earth, just like the rest of the animals, are the only ones that ever have a need for sympathy. You don't see a little, baby bear or going around saying, I need sympathy, Yeah.
It's like, oh, Mom.
Yeah. No. So,
somebody ate my porridge, Mom.
But sympathy is very compelling, and it can become really an addiction, and
like a drug.
Like a drug.
Well, it is a drug because it's a chemical reaction in your brain, which is a drug.
Yes.
Right?
Because in that moment, what do you get? You get love, you get connection, you get attention, and you get, reassurance, right?
Yeah.
So I've had people in my life that constantly either complain about what it is that they're going through, or they do, they're kind of like fishing for help. But then you and I, or just, individually, have given advice, have given help, and these, I'm not going to name names, but they've, used this advice maybe for a few days, not even a few weeks, I wouldn't say, maybe 2 weeks at the most. And at first they were saying, this is working. Wow, I should do this all the time. The next time I check in with them, which is just a few weeks down the road, they've completely stopped doing all of those things. And they're feeling exactly the same way. And they're saying, I don't know why I keep feeling this way. And so it's like this pattern. What is that explanation of doing, or that example of doing the same thing over and over again is
definition
of insanity, right?
I think that was Einstein.
Yeah.
At least that's what somebody told me.
Yeah. And guys, I'm not trying to say I haven't done this. Believe me, there are patterns and things I've done over and over again, and things I've said or told myself. But I'm constantly looking for how to grow and how to change. And so I'm always trying to work on these things. And now I've come to a place in my life where I'm catching my patterns and catching,
Well, that's the important thing is catching yourself, just like that earlier example we gave where, like you get upset at me or something. And then like, before it took a couple days for you to like, be like, okay, I get it.
Yes.
Opposed to now it just takes a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And now you can't even remember all those examples because it's been a while and you've just gotten so much better at it.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes here is there's nothing wrong with it. Like a couple weeks later, they stop doing it. Or they've stopped doing it for a couple weeks and then they call you like, yeah, I know. I mean, all they got to do is just be like, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm going back. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But instead of like, yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do.
Instead of picking it up again, saying, well, you know what? I stopped doing it. I'm going to get back into it. Yeah. It just becomes this,
Yeah, get an accountability partner. Get somebody, if it's your spouse or your loved one or your best friend or a family member, get somebody that also that wants to go, has either went through this journey already or they want to go on this journey with you.
Yeah.
And support each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't help to obviously go to somebody that doesn't want to, right? They're like, no, I like living in sympathy, but I'll help you,
Before I forget, because this will go hand in hand with this, when you make a choice to start working on yourself in this way and become aware of your, patterns and inner dialogue, a big part of this goes back to what it is that you tell yourself, right? It's not just what you're telling other people.
That internal dialogue.
This internal dialogue. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life because this was an issue I dealt with for years. And when we first started homeschooling, I was passionate about homeschooling and I wanted to do it and I knew I was committed to it. But one thing that was happening within me, and I'm not going to blame people, but it was definitely residue from things that people told me in my past, like teachers and things like that. But I always had this feeling like I was I'm just going to be honest, like I was stupid. And so when it came time to teaching my daughter, our oldest daughter, like reading and writing specifically, because those were a challenge for me, or like spelling and punctuation was a challenge for me growing up. I had this inner dialogue with myself that, who do you think you are to be able to teach your child? You struggled with these things. And, that became so deeply ingrained in me that it was kind of an unconscious level too, like this disbelief that I could actually do it. And so for about 3 years, what this did, or, what this does to you is when you have a limiting statement or belief that you're saying to yourself, it really kind of puts I would say like when you think of like a river, right? A river flowing. Let's think of it in terms of that. It's like you're putting a wall in the flow of that river, which would be the river that you would find solutions and creativity. And so I was actually stopping the flow of creativity and solutions. And I would sit down on the computer to try to come up with answers of like how I could teach these things. But I was already so in the mindset that I wasn't going to find the solution that I wasn't finding the solutions, right? How we said that words create our reality.
Yeah.
And then finally, I started to slowly take back my own personal power because I started to see, after time and time again of talking to you about this, and that I was my own worst enemy. I was the one causing this challenge. And so I started saying things to myself like, you got this, Siri Shakti. You are smart. You are an intelligent woman. You're an author. You have the knowledge to teach your child. Or if you don't have the knowledge, you have the capability to find the knowledge effortlessly.
Yeah.
And that is what I had to, and the thing is it's like retraining yourself. So I would write this down. I'd put it on the fridge. I'd put it in my car. I'd put it on my next to my computer. And I would say this to myself all the time until it came to the point where I didn't have to say it to myself anymore because it was just my belief.
Yeah, it was in your DNA now.
Yeah.
It was part of you.
Yeah. And now, like, homeschooling is, I wouldn't use the word effortlessly.
Well, now everything is perfect and you have no problems.
No.
Just like in the movies, right? They lived happily ever after.
La, la, la. Yes. Yes. But
it's easier.
It's easier, and it came to the point where now I'm just like, I totally believe in myself. If I come across something that I don't know, I'm like, it's all good. I can go look online. I'm going to find the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gets easier just like exercise, right? If you have never ran a mile and you try and run a marathon, right? Or you try and do like how long is an Ironman? Do you know?
Oh,
or how long is a marathon? Do you know that?
Full marathon is like 20. I think it's 20 miles.
Okay, so if a marathon's 20 miles and you've only ran, you've never even ran before in your entire life, how well do you think you're going to do on that marathon, right? It's going to seem like this like crazy, impossible, challenge, especially if you go out there and try and do it. But if you keep in mind that you have to train up to that, right? Then you instead of focusing on that 20 miles, you focus on 1 mile. Then you focus on 2 miles. Then you focus on 3 miles. And you just keep going, and you just get stronger and stronger the more you do it. You recover faster. You start to feel better. And then you can just start to run further and further. And that's the same thing, the same way of looking at this is you're just going to take one little step. One little step and just get better at it. The more you do it, the stronger you'll get and the more effortless it'll be. And then you'll even forget like how it used to be tough to run that 1 mile or to do that one thing and catching yourself doing it. And it really just boils down to asking better quality questions as well. And this kind of goes hand in hand with, earlier or one of the other episodes we were talking about challenges versus problems. Like I don't like to say, I'm trying to solve this problem, or I've got this problem, or this is a problem. Instead, I like to look at them as challenges, right? Because nobody wants to deal with problems, right? So instead it's like, oh, this is a challenge. And what is a challenge? A challenge is for something for you to overcome, right? And you can make it more fun. So instead, I like to look at, asking yourself better questions. So instead of asking questions like, why does this always happen to me? Why is everyone out to get me? How come life is so hard? Why does it have to be so hard? Or, why don't my kids like or love me? Hopefully you don't ask yourselves that one, but I can see like, I can see some older parents with their older children that don't call them anymore. Right. saying that like, how come my kids never call me? They're always too busy for me. They don't love me.
I've heard that before.
So if you have, if you're an adult and your parent, you haven't spoken to your parents in a while, maybe you should call them.
Yes.
Right.
Now we're going to make everyone feel guilty.
Exactly.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Call your parents.
Call your parents. Right. And if they're negative, this goes perfect for you to help them out, give them some solutions.
Yeah.
Tell them to listen to this podcast, to this episode. Right. Exactly.
I like that.
But so if you ask quality questions, it just like taking it on as a challenge, your brain will come up with answers. It'll help you come up and overcome those challenges. But if you use those bad questions, like, why does this always happen to me? Then your brain's going to come up with an answer. Why? Because that's what it has to do. It's not going to leave you in limbo. It's going to, what's it going to say?
Well, that's the thing. It usually gives you a negative answer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It always will. Why does it always happen to me? Because
Yeah.
you're an idiot. Nobody likes you.
Yeah.
Because you're dumb, because you deserve this. You deserve to be treated this way. It's something you've did in the past, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to ask those bad questions because your brain is going to come up with the damn answer and it's going to suck.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, right? So instead, instead of asking questions like that, because you can't control your brain from coming up with something. So instead, redirect it, right? Ask yourself a better quality question, right?
Yes.
Can we give some examples of a better quality question?
Let's see. How about
like, why does this always happen to me? So instead of why does this always happen to me,
okay.
Instead you can look at like, okay, well, What can I do to help this person? Because it depends on the situation, but what can I do to help this person?
Yes.
Or what can I do to keep this from happening in the future? Because like if it's something like in business, I know for me, something happens, some piece of technology breaks and it causes all this headache and it causes 48 hours of stress because something's broken and, customers aren't getting their product or something, then you have to fix it, right? And I mean, there's so many variables. It could be somebody you hired. It could be a piece of code. It could be something. So now you ask yourself, well, how can I prevent this from happening in the future?
Yes.
And what that can be is maybe you have a backup server. Maybe you have a backup something, right? You have something in place where you hire somebody that monitors everything and they're your monitor. And if something breaks, they're on it right away and they know where to fix it. So, and that's just in business, but in life too, right?
I have another one. One I used to say to myself, and you hear this all the time, like parents, especially when, we can't afford this, or, their kids will ask for something. We can't afford it.
Or that's too much. That's too expensive.
That's too expensive.
That's too much.
And just like I was saying about the floodgates or the river with the, stopping the flow of creativity.
Our kids catch us now on this.
Yeah. So instead, a way of coming up with solution is how can we afford it?
Yeah.
Right?
And there's a way you say, if you read this, it might sound wrong because it'd be like, how can I afford this? Not like that. That's not how you're asking it. You're asking from a solution based of, how can I come up with ways that I can afford this?
Yes. Or,
right?
What I've said, in the past when we were needed to kind of budget financially, if our kids wanted something and I knew we couldn't really afford it at that moment, I would be honest that, we don't have the money right now to buy it, but let's find a way to be able to afford it.
Yeah. And whether that means, you put a certain amount of money aside each month until you can pay for it and you have a plan for that.
Yeah.
So that's a solution. So now you're coming from that solution, based question. Or it might be you do something on the side that brings in that kind of money. Maybe you can sell something that's in your house because now you're coming from what are some of the ways that I can come up with that I can't afford, that I could buy this?
Right.
So maybe I can sell something I'm not using anymore. Maybe I can create, a product online or a course online and sell that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do that. For me, it's pretty damn simple. I can just be like, okay, well, let me create a online product. I'll train somebody or teach something, or I can send out an email and say, hey, I'm offering this one-on-one coaching or this group coaching, and I'm only taking on one person or, a handful of people, depending on how much money I need to raise for something and I want to pay for it, with cash, and then just do it, you know? So you're coming from solutions instead. So you're, asking yourself, like we said, how can I come up with a way to afford this or pay for this? And I love that. Our kids catch us on us all the time. Like if we say something, because it's an auto response, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, damn, I think we went out, was it yesterday, the day before? I forgot where we went. I was in the Apple store. Yeah, that's where it was. I was in the Apple store and I was getting a new case for my phone, and I had to stop there, and I had Melina and Bodhi with me, and walking through there, each of them was like, Bodhi was like, hey, I want some Bose Bose headphones, or they wanted Beats or whatever. And then Melina wanted the ear pods, and she was asking for different things as well. So they were both asking for things that were like over $100. They were asking for Apple TV and stuff like that. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think they said something like, can you buy this for me? I'm like, you know what? That's too expensive, but sometimes I'll say, and they're like, well, Dad, you need to just come up with a way that you can make that money then, right?
They do say that, yeah.
And it's not like we even taught them that. They just learned it from us because they just hear us, right? Hear us doing that ourselves. And so sometimes I'll catch myself and I'll just like reply back with a, I'm not saying we can't afford it. I'm just saying I don't want to spend that money on that right now.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you just lost your wired Bose earphones. How are you going to keep track of two little ear pods that are separated? And if you lose one, now you don't have one. How are you going to keep track of that if you can't keep track of this long wire, $100 earphones, right?
Good point.
So instead of coming from, we can't afford this, that's too expensive, I don't have the money for that. Well, how can I come up with the money for that? What are some ways that I can come up with the money for that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do have another example that came up this morning. Our oldest, Kayleen, who's 16 right now, she came out of her room and she asked me a question. And I was in the middle of something and I didn't respond right away. And she threw her hands up in the air and she goes, what do I even try? No one listens to me. And I turned around right away and I kind of snapped at her a little bit because this is something that I've heard her say a few times, quite often. Mm-hmm. And one thing I said to her is I said, Kayleen, let me tell you something. That is not a mantra that you want to say to yourself on a regular basis, okay? And I explained to her, I said, oftentimes, I gave her an example. Oftentimes, I ask her something or her siblings, and they don't respond. And then I ask again, and sometimes 3-4 times, and finally they answer. So does that mean that no one listens to me? And she said, no. I said, but hey, you guys weren't answering right away. That means no one's listening. I should tell myself that all the time, right? So instead, I told her a better quality question. If the person does not answer right away ask yourself, why might this person not be responding immediately? Something like that. Because I've heard her ask, us questions or her siblings and maybe we didn't respond right away. And sometimes we do. But it's always because we're either in the middle of something or we're talking to someone else, or we just didn't hear her. And so that is looking at it from a different point of view. That's being able to see that there's another side of things that does not mean that she's not listened to and not heard.
Exactly. And, they learn a lot of this from, TV shows, movies, even on YouTube, a lot of stuff on there where people just, have a lot of drama because they want to get sympathy as well. Yeah. They want to get views on YouTube. But, TV shows, cartoons, all that stuff has all those elements in them. And does that mean, because we went through this, does that mean that you should have them avoid that? No. It's a balance, but it's also an opportunity for you to teach them.
Yeah.
Because imagine if you went to some, we've said this, you've said this, right, Siri Shakti, where you said we should just move to an island in the middle of nowhere or into the woods and be away from everybody.
I want a farm. Let's move out to the country.
Yeah. Away from everybody, that there's nobody around, right? Well, if you do that, then how are you ever going to grow? Mm-hmm. Right? Because then you only know what's around you.
Yeah.
And then when you have to be around, the rest of the world, then how are you going to, be able to not control, but how are you going to be able to, get past that, right? Past those challenges, because the first challenge is going to really knock you down because you haven't trained for it.
Yeah.
You haven't ran that mile and then the second mile and then the third mile to where you're strong enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So instead you're going to be thrown into it if something like that, was to happen. So you use this as an opportunity to learn. So you don't say, okay, kids, go in and watch, 20 hours of TV because this is an opportunity for us to learn. No, you have to have that balance, so instead of 8 hours of TV, they can watch 2 or 3 hours of TV or something like that. Yeah. But, and then the rest is opportunity to learn, so you communicate with your kids when you hear make comments like Siri Shakti just said about Kayleen, then you kind of come to them with that. And also something that's good too is you said that you kind of snapped when she said that. And when you say snap, it's not like you screamed at her or yelled at her or whatever, but it was calculated. It was really,
Yeah.
And that is actually good as well, because now you're not giving her sympathy.
Yeah.
You're not saying oh, come here, let me talk to you and give you a learning moment because I love you and I know what you're going through. And, because then you're giving them sympathy on that and it's just going to repeat. You're changing their state. Yes. It's a pattern interrupt, as some call it, where you're kind of jolting them whoa, what, And sometimes if Bodie or Melina or Kaylee was crying, sometimes I would like tickle them and mess with them and say some stuff, and they'd be like, "Ah!" And they're like, "Ah, stop, stop." They start laughing, but then they go back to crying, and then I tickle them again. They start laughing. And then after that, then I would give them love. Yeah. Or I would hear them out or talk to them. And then I might tickle them again, but that's interrupting that pattern to where they're not remembering like, oh, if I come crying, then I'm going to get this. Instead, it's like, okay, I get it.
You've always been a lot better than me at that. Like sometimes they'll be in an emotional state and you'll get them to laugh and giggle. And then all of a sudden it's like they come out of it. And that I need to master still.
Yeah. Well, trust me, I had a heck of a lot more practice than you.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Before we even met, I mean, I was coming out of it when we actually, I was coming out of it when we met.
Yeah.
And, but man, to get there, I mean, it was definitely a lot harder. I mean, when I compare what you went through and I went through so much more than you. So yeah, so give me sympathy on that one.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
It's okay. I'm gonna pat your bottom. It's all right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm special. Thank you.
Yeah. Something I thought about when you were just talking in the past few minutes about like moving away. Right. There's been a few times where I've said like, oh, I just want to move away, like to somewhere quiet, or why can't we still live in like simplicity and like little villages and stuff? But you know, I myself oftentimes will have that sensation like there's just too much negativity. You know, you turn on the TV and so much, you know, it's so much words coming at you that are negative or dark, and it feels overwhelming. Or maybe you're dealing with people in your life. But the thing is that's not the world that we live in. And we are human beings at this time and space for a reason. And one thing I really love about Kundalini Yoga is that this is the yoga of what they call the enlightened householder. So this is a perfect form of yoga for people that are living in the modern world with a full life, with family, with job, with you name it, you know, and being able to use these teachings to stay balanced and centered and uplifted in your life. And so what I realize, you know, I have those moments where I have a desire to leave and go live remotely, which sounds beautiful. But, you know, and it's not that we can't have like, you know, little vacations and go do that. But the truth is that what the world really needs is people like us and like yourself that are like beacons of light right now, that are going to be able to withstand the constant, you know, the stuff that are coming at them. And I know we're talking about words, so let's talk about it in that reference, that we'll be able to withstand all the negative words and information that's coming at them, but be able to be strong and centered and themselves. And those are the types of people that are going to help to make a huge difference in this world. And I'm sure I know you agree with me on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could, and here's another reason why, because if you moved away and just like, and again, we're talking about like, you know, seclusion, right? You moved away from everything else because you're like, I can't deal with this world. And, you know, I'm just going to move away and live simply and be away from everything. And there's nothing really wrong with that if that's, you know, your calling. But the truth is like, you can only move so far and so many times, because if you were to do that, then maybe not your generation, but the next one, and you have kids and it just keeps going and going. Well, at some point it's going to reach downstream. It's going to reach you, right? Because you're in the world's backyard, no matter what you think. So if you move 100 miles away from anybody, at some point, you know, the rest of society in the world is going to catch up with you. Yeah. So if you're not, you know, going to be a beacon for light or come and do something, then it's going to come into your backyard downstream.
Yes. And in that case, you will not have strengthened your muscles in a sense, you know, to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And, but obviously, and again, it just kind of made me think about like, well, don't use this as, and I don't think anybody would,
Yeah.
but don't use this as like, oh, it builds character if a bully is bullying your kid or something like that.
No.
It makes you stronger, that they're picking on you and making you feel like crap. No,
No.
definitely. It's no excuse for bullying. And you definitely want to stop that.
Yeah.
Another thing too is, when it comes to sympathy, it kind of reminded me of something in passing that happens constantly, which is something like, when you have a phone call, and whether it be a business partner, like in my example, a business partner, or somebody you work with, or a family member, or even when you're at the grocery store or out to dinner or lunch or whatever, and somebody says, "Oh, how you doing today?" I mean, that's just like a how's the weather kind of thing. Like, they're not looking to hear your life story. They're not looking, to find out like how you're feeling today, and how last night was a hard night, and like, you wouldn't be at the grocery store, and hopefully, and they say like, how you doing? And all they're saying is how you doing, and they just expect oh, good, how are you? Oh, I'm good as well, and then that's it. So you're not going to sit there and talk about like, oh, my life is a mess, and I've got this headache, and nobody loves me, and I think I'm broke, or anything like that, trying to get that sympathy, so you don't want to do that. But there are times, that, and if you do this to a family member, because I mean, I know we've had this in our life with family members and friends and people like that you say, how you doing? And they just go through this long laundry list of how they're dying, and they're scared of this, or they're scared of that, or they feel like they're ugly, or they feel like they're dumb, or whatever, I mean, over the years, this is, kind of been something for us. So instead of doing that yourself, don't do it. Don't look for that sympathy. So be careful when you are explaining something like that you're not looking for sympathy, okay? Because it has a different charge to it and energy to it. So like, for instance, if I didn't get any sleep, and I'm like going off like, let's say 2 hours of sleep or something, my head's hurting, and my business partner, Ben, calls me in the morning, and, something automatically is, oh, how you doing today? Right? Sometimes in that case, I will let him know. I'll say, I got about 2 hours of sleep last night and my head's hurting, but I'm going to push through it. I'm going to, I did some yoga. I'm feeling as good as I can, and let's just get this going. And it's not, and he'll even say like, oh, I'm sorry, man, that sucks. Right. But I'm not looking for that sympathy. And I do appreciate any answer I get. I'm only telling him that because in case he had some scheme idea or whatever of like, hey, let's pull an all-nighter tonight and create a product and do all this other stuff. So he knows already either not to bring that up, or when, if he says, let's do that, then I'm going to be like, you know what? No, tomorrow, let's do it, because I didn't get enough sleep. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I'll do that, is if it'll help our conversation or the day or whatever it might be, then that's what I'll do. Just like if somebody was to call you and, you guys normally work out together or exercise or go on a run. Like if there was somebody that you went out, that you would go like once a week or twice a week out for a run, and they call you and say, how you doing today? You could tell them like, I didn't get no sleep, or, I've got this cramp in my leg, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're not going to go running. Oh, okay, so I guess we're not running. Yeah, I gotta like wait till tomorrow or whatever. Let's reschedule. But a family member calling and saying, how you doing? And you're not, just don't unload on them like everything that's bad in your life, because they can't help you, and you're not looking for sympathy or anything like that. I mean, it can come up in a conversation, but just be aware of that.
Yeah.
Be careful that you're not looking for that sympathy, because it is a drug. And, just like, if I'm at dinner, like we were at dinner and we were at a sushi place in Fashion Island. What was it? Last night or the night before?
Yeah,
Can't
night
remember.
before.
And we were there, and what does the waiter ask? How you doing today? I'm not going to go through like and talk about how things suck or anything like that, no matter what. Like, like, oh, I just had this really bad phone call with this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, they were trying to make me feel crappy, but I wouldn't let them, I mean, could you imagine how that conversation would go?
I've had people do that to me before, and I'm like, oh God, like I start to kind of walk away like, okay, can
I worked at my parents' restaurant, right? At the Copper Skillet for years.
Yeah.
And I would ask people, how you doing today? And yes, I would get all kinds of crazy answers. And I'd just be like, all right, can I walk away now?
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes also, I mean, I'm not saying you always have to use this, but sometimes fake it till you make it is like really powerful, because I've heard stories. I forgot who it was. Actually, maybe it was our teacher guru saying, I think, he was saying that, no, he was telling us a story about a woman that he knows, and she was going through a really hard time. And she decided she was going to start telling people that she was great. So when anyone would ask how she was doing, every day she would be like, I'm great. Everything's awesome. And at first it felt forced. It felt fake. But all of a sudden, what started happening? She started feeling great. Things started happening that made her feel great. And I mean, I know there could be arguments like, oh, you can't fake it all the time. But really, I mean, sometimes you got to give a little effort. Things may not be going that great, but if we, just like the example of the water, right? They took the sample of the polluted water. Well, sometimes that's how we're feeling, right? Polluted, we're feeling down.
Oh, totally.
But then they put those beautiful words on it, and what started to happen to the water? It started to change for the better.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. You start to tell yourself and tell people how wonderful you're doing, or telling yourself internally that things are going well. And that's what starts to happen. Your reality begins to match that.
Yeah. And you can't do anything about it anyways if somebody's like in passing asking, how you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got this headache and I'm all, well, I mean, yeah, what are they going to do? Like give you something special magic that they're going to remove your headache or whatever it might be? Of course not. No.
Yeah.
So don't even do that. So faking it till you make it is just basically saying, if they're not going to be able to help you, so why pollute their water too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have an example I'd like to share too from my own experience that what really goes with this, that about a year ago, I started having some challenges with my eyes, and it was probably the scariest thing that I had ever been through, because everything through my eyes looked imbalanced, and I didn't know what was going on. I went to so many doctors and healers, and what started to happen through this, though, is because I really felt so insecure, so unsafe, because I didn't know what was happening, is I would ask my husband, you, Dan, every day, a couple times a day, like I would voice to you how it felt. I would voice to you what was going on, and I wanted you to say to me, it's okay, or, give whatever response you needed to give. And what I began to realize is that I had built up a sort of an addiction to relying on you to tell me that things were okay. And what I also began to realize is that I was giving away my own, some of my own power by expecting you to be able to fix it for me. And so what I started doing is I decided to start talking to myself differently. And this is me faking it till I made it, all right? I decided to say to myself constantly, all is well. I'm at ease. My eyes are beautiful and clear. I'm in alignment. And so I would say that, especially when I was driving, because driving felt extra scary, because I'd have to focus on so many things. And I'd even do, I'd get my body into it. I would do a mudra, which is a hand posture with my right hand. It's called Gyan Mudra, putting your pointer finger to your thumb. And that is the mudra for knowing and for knowledge. And I would put it at my heart center while I'm driving with my left hand. And I would say that mantra. And those words that I spoke to myself combined with that hand mudra made me feel centered. It started to make me feel safe, a sense of safety, which is what I really needed. And, it's been a couple months of doing this, and I have to tell you, not only have my eyes gotten better because I think the stress of the situation was also making it worse, but I have felt like I have brought back my own personal power, and I'm finding solutions now. In fact, what I feel is that I have found this sense of power to be able to heal my eyes, and that's what I'm studying right now, is how to self-heal without and going without glasses. So that is going to be my journey that I'm embarking on right now.
Yep. So. And full disclaimer here is disclosure or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Be sure to consult a physician,
which is
an eye doctor, before you attempt to do anything. Like that, because we don't want you saying like, oh, Siri Shakti said I can heal my eyes.
Yes.
And then they take off their glasses, but they have like really bad vision, and then they try and drive and crash.
Oh, no.
Be careful.
Let me touch on that. All of this realization came after seeing multiple doctors, getting even like a CT scan, and coming up to, and basically everyone said, you're fine. Your eyes are fine. Yeah. And so after receiving that comment over and over again from doctors, and even my eye doctor would say, your eyes are fine, except for your slight prescription that you need for, farsightedness and your stigmatism. I'm like, all right, I came up to the point where I'm like, I'm out of answers. I'm going to have to deal with this within myself. And so the words really have helped in that and are continuing to help.
Yeah. And right now you're working on healing your vision.
Yeah.
Which you can, there are other people out there doing it as well. And
yeah, I'm starting to use what is called the Bates method. I'm still learning about it, but it's all these different eye exercises. And then from what I understand, you slowly lessen your prescription. So you don't go cold turkey without glasses. You lessen them until you get to the point where, I've heard stories of like this woman where now she doesn't even need glasses. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you also, because you weren't looking for sympathy as you were explaining this, but just so, everybody listening knows that how intense this was for you in the beginning, you would just constantly cry. And I ended up, after you took Melina to a dance competition, you came back. You actually had said that you were like, you felt like you were dying. And we had to you were panicking so bad that we ended up having to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And you thought that you were passing out and having a heart attack or something like that. You thought you had a tumor. You had like all these things going on and you were going to die.
Yeah.
You were writing your will in your head, you said. And you were thinking you were going to die. Like, no joke. It was that intense for you. And, now it's still a little bit intense for you, I can tell, but nothing like that. Like if that was a scale of 100, you're down to a 1 now, maybe a 2 at times.
Yeah.
But that was insane. It was so crazy.
Yeah. So just, I really want you to understand that this is how powerful words are, that even through a scary situation like that, words gave me back my power. They
words,
can give
thoughts. It's all the same.
Yeah,
it's all
because
together.
It was the words and the thoughts, because it was what I was telling myself and thinking constantly. And my mind would wander constantly to the negative of like, I'm dying or something like that. But I would just kind of like you do as a parent or with a child, you bring them back to what they need to be doing, right? I would bring myself back to what I'm supposed to be focusing on.
Exactly.
So before we get into our RockStar mission, what I want to repeat one more time for you guys, so you just, so we really get to this point, is that all that we've talked about right now is that the words that you speak and that you say to yourself, that you think, are so powerful, that your words are your lens in which you see your reality through. So use them consciously and practice this, teach yourself to be aware of what it is that you're telling yourself and that you're thinking to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the website, we'll actually have a link to the book, to the hidden messages in water. Also, anything else that we've talked about, we'll put links and resources, including, I'm sure we'll put something on there about the, what was that? The Gyan Mudra?
Yeah, the Mudra. Okay.
Mudra. So we'll put that on there as well. So you can get that all at rockstarinlife.com.
Yeah.
and also the transcript, download my free books, training, yoga, meditation, homeschooling advice, and so much more, right? So go to rockstarinlife.com and join the Rockstar in Life revolution today.
Awesome.
Right? All right. So are we ready for our Rockstar mission today?
We're ready. Do it.
You're speaking for everybody, right?
Yes. Everyone's ready.
Love it. All right. So for your Rockstar mission today, grab your journal, paper, whatever you're going to use. Make sure you're not driving when you do this. Pull over, right? Write down 3 things that you've either said to yourself or someone around you recently that wasn't a quality question or statement, or it was a limiting belief. So any of the things that we've been talking about, something that hasn't been empowering you, that hasn't been serving you, that you've been looking for sympathy for when you should actually be looking for solutions. So think of 3 things and write them down. And you could write more. You can definitely do that. And this might be something that you repeat to yourself constantly. It might not just be one time. You might be saying this like daily, right? Yeah. So definitely that needs to be one of those things that you write down. One of those 3 at the very minimum. So write those things down. And then for each of those, each of those 3 things, right? For all 3 of those, it didn't sound right. I don't know why.
for each of those 3.
For each of those, those 3 things that you chose or more, write down a better way to ask that question or replace it with something better, like a better statement or a better question or a better belief or a solution. Something that you can do that's different than you were doing before, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. And what that's going to do is that when you get that on paper, first of all, writing is so powerful, but getting it on paper, you're going to be able to see very clearly like, oh, shoot, I've been saying some pretty limiting negative stuff to myself. And then when you come up with a better option, you're going to feel energetically, you'll be able to feel the difference. Say both of them to yourself and think them to yourself. And you'll notice very clearly that there is a different vibration in each of those phrases or questions.
Yeah. And it's great as well because this is something that you can do every single day.
Yeah.
So, you might be out in public or you might be on the phone or you might be working and, a family member or a loved one or, a friend or in your job or your business, you might get something that either somebody says to you or you say to yourself or you say to somebody else. And then all of a sudden you might catch yourself and be like, ooh, that probably wasn't the best thing. Yeah. Write that down. Yeah. Write that down right there and then. Yeah. Write it down and then write what are like 1 or 2 or 3 things I can say different in that when you catch yourself. And then the more you do this, it'll be to a point to where it's second nature. It's in your DNA to where you don't even have to write it down. You just catch yourself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. All right, fellow rock stars in life, you have your Rockstar mission. So go out there and make this part of your life. And don't forget to be a rock star in your life.
And make the world your stage.
Thanks for listening to Rockstar in Life, your source for unleashing your inner rock star. For more tips, training, and free stuff, be sure to go to rockstarinlife.com and join the Rockstar in Life revolution today. Thanks again, and don't forget to make the world your stage.